Welcome to Home Tiny Lab. My name is Christoph, and in this video we are going to use the pre-boot execution environment, better known as PXE, to install a virtual machine in XCP-ng using Xen Orchestra. Here we are on a web page where they explain a little bit what you need and how you can configure the PXE environment. What we are going to do, we will try two ways to configure this. One will be through netboot.xyz and the other through iVentoy. What do we need? We will need a server to start with, and the virtual machine that I will use will run under XCP-ng already, and it has to have Docker running also on it. And secondly, you need to have access to your DHCP configuration. But let's start with how we can configure the netboot.xyz. You can see that I have already configured a virtual machine that will run my Docker server. And here I am going to show why I am configuring a pre-boot execution environment, or PXE. So if you would create a new virtual machine and you select a template, and if you go to the install settings, you will see that there is two choices to make. Or you choose the PXE, or you choose the ISO DVD. For the ISO DVD, I've already shown in previous videos how you can configure your storage resource, your special storage resource for ISOs. And now I'm going to show how you can choose the PXE proposition to install a virtual machine. So let's go out of this screen. And let's go now to the page of netboot.xyz. And they have an old section where they explain, or they have a complete section where they explain how you can install your container. If you go a little bit further in the page, you will see that there is a section for a Docker Compose configuration, and this is the one that I'm going to use. If you go to the GitHub page, there will be an example, and I am going to take this configuration and adapt it to my needs. Here you have the complete page, and this was the raw page. If you want to do a copy paste, this is what you should use. Here I am logged into the virtual machine that I am going to configure to run the Docker container. So here I am in my home directory, and it is empty, like you can see. So what I usually do when I deploy a Docker virtual machine, I make a certain directory structure. So the first directory that I always make is a directory Docker, and under Docker I usually make for each container that I am deploying also a directory. In my case, this will be netboot.xyz. And now we have to get the Docker Compose file in this directory. What you could do is to get it with Git directly on the server, or you can do a copy paste. So I will name this Docker Compose.yaml file. And I'm going to copy paste. So now I have the content in my file. Now let's adapt it to what I'm used to use. So if I go here, this is not anymore needed in the new or in a more recent Docker environment. All the other stuff, this I am going to comment out because I would like the latest version of the menu. And here I am going to set other path for the config file and another one for the assets. Okay, all the other stuff I'm leaving as it is. Let's go out of this file and let's start it up. To start it up, I'm going to show which version I'm using of Docker. And this is done, and let's now start the container. So to start up a container in Docker Compose, it's Docker Compose up, and then we will run it as a daemon or in the background if you prefer that. So the container is launched. It had already the image on the system because normally it would have downloaded also the image. But okay, this said, it has started now the container. To see this, we do docker ps. You will see that it is running. Now that we are here, if we go to port 3000 of the IP address of this server, so let's check the IP address. And the IP address of this server is 1067.10.108. So if I open our browser, okay, the browser is launched. So you can choose. So I have, you can enter the IP address like this. But I have already configured my DNS. So I could use the DNS name, but I will show it with the IP address. And then it's port 3000. And now you are in the netboot.xyz environment or to configure or to download some assets. So if we go back to the shell of the system, you will see there are two directories added, the assets and then the config. Let's clear this. Let's go back to the browser. You will see once you boot the virtual machine that there is a menu structure and you can adapt it here to the needs that you have or to the environment that you want to impose to your users. You can also pre-download the ISOs that you want to deploy on your virtual machines. So if you don't have a good internet connection, it's best to set the assets already locally. To do this, you simply click on what you want to put locally. You can also select everything and then pull it and it will be placed at this side. So let's clear the selection. I'm going to take one thing as an example. Let's take the first one. Pull the selected. Here you see the progress bar that it is busy, and when this is completed it will be added to the assets. So if you want to do this kind of configuration, don't forget to give enough disk space to your virtual machine or to your physical machine that is going to do the role of the PXE environment. This is everything that I want to show in here. The other thing that can be important, if we go and take a look at the Docker Compose file, if you don't want that the menu can be accessed by everybody, then you can comment this out. If you don't want that people can directly see which ISOs are already locally downloaded on your virtual machine, then you can comment this out. And this port has to be open because this is used to transfer the file to your virtual machine that you're going to install or your physical machine that you're going to install. So let's leave this file and now let's configure the DHCP server. If you go to the netboot.xyz you will see that there is in getting started booting methods, and under those booting methods you will find booting from TFTP. That's why the port 69 has to stay open. And then you will see that there are some configurations to do on the DHCP side. So what you have to add is the next server. This is the IP address of your Docker server, and then the file name. That is the file name to present the menu and boot environment to the system that you are going to configure. So let's configure the DHCP server. So I'm using OpenSense, also in my home lab as a DHCP server. So let's log in to the firewall. And let's have a look to the section of the services and have a look at DHCP. And if we look at the labo part of my firewall, we have to select the part of the network where you want your DHCP for configured, or where your DHCP is already configured for. And then if you go down into that section, you will find network booting, and that's where you will configure the PXE settings. You click on the advanced, there are some things that will show up, and here you see that's already filled in. You see set next server IP, and this is the IP address of my Docker server that's running the container for netboot.xyz. And here you have the boot file name that I've entered. So I have to click on save, and let's leave this and let's go back to Xen Orchestra. If you're in Xen Orchestra, there you can configure now a new virtual machine by using PXE. We click on new virtual machine. You select the machine where you want to deploy on your new virtual machine. You select template. Let's go for Rocky Linux. Let's say that this is a PXE boot, and this is an example. Let's give it 4 cores. This is important that this is high enough. 4 GB seems to work each time. You can lower this once you have configured your virtual machine. This has to be high enough because everything will be preloaded in memory. So if it doesn't work, it's probably because this is too low. Topology, default behavior. And here we are going to select PXE. No local storage. We will do this on network resource. The name I don't really care. Description, okay. Here 15 gigs also. It's something that we are going to delete immediately after. It's only to show what's going to happen. You click on create. VM is starting up. And normally it doesn't have to work now, but we will see why. So it is, if you are using XCP-ng 8.3, by default it will use UEFI. If you would do this on XCP-ng 8.2, there the default is I think natively BIOS. So let's change this. We are going to advanced. So here you see boot firmware, it's put in UEFI. Let's select by default BIOS. We will see what's going to happen. Let's go back to console and then reboot the virtual machine. Let's confirm with OK. And now it is starting up. And it said no bootable device found. The reason, I don't know. Let's start up again. Oh, next boot server, it's not put correctly. And I know why. So I've said that I've configured this for my network, Labo network, and it's trying to boot now into my normal network. But it's not, so we go to the network section, and if we select here, we will normally find somewhere a Labo network. I cannot change because the machine is running, I think. Let's try this again. Yeah, let's click on stop. Okay. Let's select Labo network. Okay, it's selected. Let's go to the console so that we can see if it boots. Let's click on start now. And now the system is booting up. So it will load now the menu normally. And here it is. And now you can select a system to boot from. Let's use Live CD. For example, let's go to Debian or Debian, I don't know how you pronounce it, and then Debian Live 12 Bookworm. And here you can choose the flavor you want. Let's do KDE. And this will take some time to boot up because it has to download everything from the internet, then put it into memory, and then boot up the environment. So here you can see that the progress in the download. The system is up and running, and from here you can now install Debian if you want to, but the point is now you can use PXE to install different distributions using netboot.xyz. In the next part, we are going to see how you can do the same thing, almost the same thing, with iVentoy. So let's prepare for this. The second part is to configure iVentoy. So let's have a look at iVentoy webpage. It will be different in a way of netboot.xyz, that every ISO will be or has to be downloaded locally. So here you have the website for iVentoy. Again, you will need to access the DHCP configuration to configure it to use the server that I'm going to use for iVentoy. So let's have a look. So I have started up iVentoy virtual machine, and this is the one that I'm going to configure. What we need to do is to download the latest version of iVentoy, and this for the Linux version. We can find this at the GitHub page. So let's go to the VM. So here we are logged in on the virtual machine that I'm using to configure the iVentoy server on, because it's like a server that it will work. And like you can see, my home directory of the root is empty. So first we are going to create the iVentoy directory. Then I'm going into that folder, and now we have to download the iVentoy software. For this you need to have wget installed. Okay, this is the command to download from the GitHub page the iVentoy software. So if we do a list, we will see that we have a compressed file, a compressed tar file. So we have to unzip the iVentoy file and then to untar it. We can do this with one command. So normally we can do this with the start command, extract verbose, and then by mentioning the file, enter. If we do ls, we will see that there is iVentoy folder created again. Clear this and let's go into that folder. And in that folder you will see there is iven.sh. So normally you can execute this. And the usage is start stop status. Okay, let's start it. And now it says that we can go to the page by using local IP address 26,000, but this is not going to work normally because the firewall ports are not opened. So let's go to the dock again. So we have to add following ports: 26,000, 16,000, 10,000, 809 in TCP, and then for UDP the 69. So let's go to our server and add those ports. So here we can add now the 260,000 ports, then the 16,000 port, and then we have to add the 10,809. And then we have to add the UDP and 69. That's for the TFTP. So this is added, and now we have to reload this into the firewall. So this is done, and now we can check this again with firewall command, and let's list all, and we see that the ports are added. This means that we now can browse to the iVentoy server that's running. Okay, we are on the web page of iVentoy. The thing that we have to change is the DHCP server. We have to put this to external. And this is enough. Normally you could also use external net, but external worked very fine for me. All the other stuff we'll leave it at default. So you will recognize the ports that we have defined. You can always save this. Let's go to boot information. Here you have to, and now we are getting a message. So I try to start the iVentoy software from the GUI, and it says that there were no ISO files detected. And it said put the ISO file into the ISO directory. So we are going to put one ISO in it, and we will see if it will start when we have done that. To go to the ISO directory, here we are, and now we have to download the ISO into this. So look somewhere your favorite flavor of distro that you want to try. So I'm going to try to find the link of a distribution that I want to download. So let's do Rocky Linux download Rocky Linux, and here I want the minimal ISO. Let's copy the link. Let's go to the virtual machine again. Let's clear this, and let's use with wget, and the link we can download now the Rocky Linux minimal distribution ISO. When we have finished doing this, we will return to iVentoy. Okay, almost there, but in the meantime we can configure our DHCP server. So here we are in OpenSense, and let's go to the services, DHCP for the lab network. And then we have to go to the bottom of the page and we have to look for network booting, and then in advanced, and here you see the settings that we add for the netboot.xyz. But let's go and see what we have to put in for iVentoy. This is the service IP address. We can copy it and then paste it in here, and then we have to set the set default BIOS file name. This is for netboot.xyz, and the file name was this. There was a space before. Shall put it also here to be certain, and then click on save. And our DHCP configuration is done, and let's have a look at where we are for the download of the ISO. Now we are at 90%. Okay, everything is downloaded. Let's clear this and let's go back to the web page of the iVentoy utility, and let's try to restore this service. Still giving the message, but let's click on refresh. Now we have to go to the image management page, and there click on refresh, and the image is now visible on the page. And let's go back to boot information and let's start it up. This is running. And let's see now if we can boot a virtual machine from the network. So here I am back on my Xen Orchestra page. Let's select all the VMs that are on the page. I have here my PXE boot that I have used for the first part of the video for netboot.xyz. So it would be the same to create. So if you go to advanced, still network is the first boot in the order. So let's go to console and let's start the virtual machine up. Okay, and here we are on the welcome page of iVentoy, and we can select, I have only one ISO in my ISO directory, but if you want more choices, you can even put folders in the ISO directory and so group your ISOs locally. So if you want to work locally, I think that iVentoy is a really good solution. And if you want to get everything from the internet, latest releases, and with a menu that is always updated automatically, netboot.xyz is a really good solution. So this was it for this video. I had some fun by configuring those different PXE solutions. If you are aware of other solutions, please let it know in the comments. And if you like content like this, don't forget to subscribe. And if you liked it, please give it a thumbs up. And I will see you in the next video.